get bigger than this. And for South Africa, it's going to be the biggest tournament, the biggest sporting event they've ever seen.
The Catholic Church is relatively young in South Africa. Most of our places that are having centenaries are going back 150 years at the most. So it's a rather relatively young church, and yet a very vigorous one.
We're about 10% of the total population of 50 million people in South Africa. I think the church has been growing steadily. There are about 29 dioceses.
Stretching from the Limpopo River in the north right down to the tip of Africa in Cape Town.
Today, most of the church, probably about 70% of the church, is based in rural areas, and most of the work of the church is in places where no one else will go. And then we have about 30% in urban areas, dealing with everything from universities to hospitals to clinics to schools. And we have about 1,200 parishes, all told, in South Africa.
The Bishops' Conference has been involved in a number of projects. Currently, one of the flagship projects, if you want, is the program that deals with HIV/AIDS, that runs a budget of in excess of 90 million rand per annum.
I think it's a time to be grateful as a church, grateful to God for what has been doing in all these years. If you think the last 10, 12 years since we started talking about HIV/AIDS, really the church as a whole, the church in South Africa as a whole, really tried to saw this as a challenge and try to answer concretely to each situation.
In South Africa, AIDS is a major problem. I mean, especially in KZN and a number of places around there. I mean, it's affecting a large majority of the population, in particular the youth.
The church in South Africa is a church that is very much involved on the grassroots. We're people who, in every community, there's a different response to the needs of that community. In our urban communities, we find much more response in terms of St. Vincent de Paul societies, charity work that way. In our rural areas, we're focusing mainly on home-based care and care of orphans and vulnerable children. We face a massive problem in South Africa with children who have been left behind, whether it be by grandparents or parents or left behind in families, and very often the social coping skills are not there. So that's a major part of the work of the church. A lot of our work is also dealing with migrants and refugees, reminding ourselves that we have a very big issue in Southern Africa in terms of where people are coming from, why they're coming, and what we as church can respond to, because very often the local community has the best response, but also that's the most dangerous place in terms of xenophobia. And that's something we're very concerned about. So we work very hard in doing peace-building workshops to try and show to the world, and to our communities especially, that we can work and learn and be together.
We are very conscious of the fact that we come from very different backgrounds, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to ensure that the sense of community is one that we are going to carry over very strongly. And in recent times, we've shifted the focus away from removing the things that divide us to the thing that brings us together, or the person rather, that brings us together most. And through pastoral forums that we've held in the last 10 years, bringing together all the bishops of the different dioceses of Southern Africa and representatives from the laity, clergy and religious of those dioceses, these forums have identified friendship with Jesus, encounter with Jesus, as the core value that we should strive to underline, so that that is the value that brings us together and makes us a community.
So I'd say that the church in 2010 is still as relevant as it was at the time of Jesus. We're still the bride of Christ, and our aim is still to evangelize. And what does that mean? It means to bring Jesus Christ into the lives of every man and woman. And so we need to be able to be there for training, for formation, for uplifting people, but all the time remembering Jesus' command that we go and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. That's our primary aim.
Now, we are saying that we should also use this World Cup occasion to highlight that scourge, that tragedy, to mobilize people to mount a campaign against human trafficking.
We feel that our people could be easily deceived with promises of jobs or further studies and be taken to other parts of the country. At the same time, we know that people are being trafficked into our country. So we don't know the things. We need to open our eyes. Where is your brother? Where is your sister? Before it's too late.
The Games FIFA World Cup event seems to open up doors for people who are interested in trafficking in children and women, who make profit out of that. But the problem with that is that it also degrades people who become involved in that. It's a deceptive activity because people are trafficked without actually being told what is going to happen at the end of the trip they make. And thereafter, they simply remain in the control of those who traffic them. And in a sense, they become slaves, they become prisoners, and are paid a pittance for selling their bodies. We feel that as a church, we should involve all individual, all parish communities to begin to become aware of this campaign, to educate, to raise the level of awareness, especially amongst our youth, so that they become careful in terms of becoming unnecessarily ambitious about going to foreign lands without actually knowing what's going to happen there. And secondly, to try and urge the government, whilst there are laws in place, we do not feel that there is enough attention paid to this scourge. We do not feel that the campaign mounted by ordinary organizations is not complemented by the government's strong hand against people who traffic with women and children.
And somewhere we need a response deep within us. The journey is from the head to the heart, and we must get back on track with the heart and say, no, we don't accept this. We stand against this.
And we will live through life, not only as Christians, but we know that we are brothers. Whether white or color, the black or Indian, we are one.
There are opportunities in South Africa that may not exist in other parts of the world. We're forming a new society. We're looking at new ways of doing things.
I think one of the things that we have been quite well known for is that our Bishops' Conference has been a very united one, and that gave us the strength to punch well above our weight, if I may use that example, in terms of the contribution we made during the struggle against apartheid and towards the democracy that we have today.
And we just came up almost spontaneously with the name, a translation of the Kirche am Ball that was used in Germany. And that just seemed to fit what we wanted to say so well, that this wasn't just about plain and preachy, it's about the fun that we're having the fun that our community is having, but also that we are a church very much involved in grassroots issues, things that are happening on the ground.
Well, you know, personally for me, I think it's going to be really exciting to meet people from different parts of the world, you know, teenage Catholics who are kind of going through the same things that we're going through.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for South Africa to have the Soccer World Cup here. I mean, especially if it's an opportunity to be part of history. I mean, it's the first time the World Cup's going to be on African soil.
It's actually great to see that people from all races, all nations can come to one place, to the Rainbow Nation, and enjoy the football that will be played.
Soccer can do that. It can unite people and bring them together. It can change people's views on things and give them a new experience in a different country. I think people sometimes think of South Africa as, you know, people ride around on elephants and their lions in the back garden and things. I think it's going to give them a good view of things and how the Catholic Church is in South Africa.
Slowly but surely, all South Africans have come together, you know, no matter what faith, religion, what race, no matter what, we've all come together and we've had to come together to put this World Cup together.
It's also a wonderful opportunity, I think, for having people just come to discover the riches of our own cultures here in South Africa, that we can work together and foster unity and liberation.
Sport can really lift the spirits of the people, and that this tournament is going to be that silver lining, you know, for those people who are perhaps going through a difficult time and are perhaps a little bit negative about the political situation in the country. So I think that'll all be pushed aside, and I think this will be a really great uplifting event for South Africans, and who knows, it could really turn the minds of the leaders and the politicians as well.
I think it will be positive because people are excited, they're expecting visitors, and they will be preparing themselves to welcome visitors. So in a sense, it's a moment of renewal for everybody. It's an exciting moment. It is also a moment of creativity as to how to engage people who've never met before and make them feel at home. So I think that spirit will last for will linger a little longer even after the event itself.
The Church on the Ball project for us is just a wonderful way of saying we are part of this World Cup, that the World Cup is not just about the stadiums and infrastructure and the people coming, it's about the South Africans who are here celebrating, enjoying, being part of it, showing how we as South Africans, and particularly the South African Church, are saying this is a wonderful opportunity for us to show what living together means. It means that we are reaching out, crossing boundaries, playing together and learning about each other. So for us it was a wonderful way to showcase the South African Church.